to see American poverty, all you got to do is go to your average reservation. I mean, the income is 60 to 70% lower than the average. There are more single women trying to do harder work than any other place. There is a higher rate of alcoholism, quite simply because at the edges of those reservations on the roads, you find red light areas, or however you want to describe that. I don't mean as in prostitution, but you've got your gambling, you get your bad, cheap liquor, you get all of the things that help corrupt poverty life on every road. So you can't get out of it if you're a young American. And they're faced with a world that doesn't meet the worldview that their elders faced with them. So that Native suicides are always way higher than the rest of the curve. And when you see that, even as a child, it makes an impression. You know that there's something different about here where Grandma lived than the town I live in. You know, the town I live in may be a rural, small Kansas farm town, but it's not this. This is an isolated place in America that they don't want anybody else to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, you look at maps and the reservations are hardly even mentioned on them sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be a great big blot out like this, and in the tiny center you'll see Navajo reservation.
Yeah.
You know, your eyes would just normally go over that. And that's one of the better reservations in America. You get into some of the small reservations, the no-water reservations, the Kickapoo reservations, and the despair is
People
just...
living in squalor, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just absolutely palpable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to not, you know, I mean, so for me it wasn't as much of an awakening as it was what I think it was for a lot of my contemporary Native American friends, was a call. It was like a call out to finally somebody's trying to stop this. Finally somebody's trying to do something about this. That's why if you study when AIM was at Wounded Knee, study the roll call, which, you know, bloods, they don't keep them. But if you look at the films and stuff, you'll notice that you've got Indians from all over the country at Wounded Knee at that time. Those are not just Ogallala Sioux.
No, everybody
Those are not just members of the Sioux Nation and larger. There were members of the Takelma tribe there. There were members of the Grand Ronde tribe. There were members, a lot of kids came from Seattle, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't because they didn't know. It was because until that started happening, none of us had a chance to do anything.
Right.
It's not, those are not the kind of problems that can be addressed by one person. Quite often in a society like this, one person with a stern frame of mind can take on the powers that be and slowly build resources, you know. The rung of the ladder is just too low with Natives to do that. I mean, look at the John Trudells, the Floyd Westermans, the Kid Valances. You look at all of these people and the power of their art and the powers of their voices. You know, when AIM came together, it was just like I guess you could call it a mass tribal scream. Just as, no, that's enough. We just can't go on like this. You know, we can't let you keep rigging our tribal elections. We can't let you keep desecrating our sacred grounds. We can't do any of this anymore. We can't let you stamp out our traditional life. Because that traditional life, you call it traditional, but to us it's just simply life. You know, it's the way we live and the way we want to live. And you don't really have a right to take that away. You know what I mean? Not only did you break treaty laws in the first place, but come in and mine anything that you find in the ground, whether it's good for us or not. Just come in and mine it. I mean, look at the native asbestos mining, uranium mining, silver mining. You know, it's as if not only are there no rules to favor Native Americans on their own lands, the way the treaties were set up, but there are no rules to inhibit the capitalists when they come onto those lands. You know, then suddenly that's just a native problem. You're going to have to work that all out. Now, those natives don't have money for lawyers. They don't have a good voice in the court. So it's basically laissez-faire capital on their land. Try the same thing right off of their land, and you've got state regulations, county regulations, federal regulations, all of these regulations to inhibit that capital extraction of resources long enough to set up a decent system, or try to. We often lose. But the Indians never stood a chance. You know, they didn't have any of that infrastructure to take those things on. So you see one side coming in taking whatever they want, and the other side not even allowed to live the life that we call traditional and they call life. You know, it's the way that their people have always lived. You know, I mean, why don't we call farming traditional lifestyle? you know.
I know.
And we need to go out and protect the traditional lifestyle of the farmers. You know, it's just their life. We don't look at it like that. We don't put them in some special category.
Right, of some different weird thing that they're doing.
Some difference there. You're not us. You have a traditional
You're
life.
an other. Yeah.
You're a fourth generation farmer, but you're just an American.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly, but you're a seventh generation Sioux and you have a traditional life.
You're a, weird.
Exactly. And at the time, it was really funny. When I went there, I found that the backlash was extremely good for Native communities. A lot of kids who weren't following a traditional life, as they called it until then, began to live much more as Indians, and to listen to their elders, and to gather around them and put them back in the exalted position that in an oral society you have to have. You cannot relegate your elders to nobodies in an oral tradition. You know, you can do that if you teach digitally or if you teach on paper, if you do anything else. But if you're passing down stories, you've got to keep the elders here. You know, and the young people discovered that during the turmoil. An awful lot of kids came back from Minneapolis that had left the res and left the native life. You know, and came back, and there were so many positive things to that, and so much power invested in it.